Part 72. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 711. Shen Wuifang had already noticed Tian Kuixing's arrival, but he did not stop Tian Kuixing from killing Li Wu, because he thought this was a great opportunity. The mysterious store manager Lin may appear for Li Wu's Dao mark or spiritual imprint, and he can quietly observe from the sidelines, who is this mysterious shopkeeper Lin? What different powers do they possess? He was very interested in this mysterious method that could rejuvenate people. Lin Yi's method of rejuvenating people was completely different from the techniques they mastered, which he could easily see. At this time, Lin Yi, among all things, frowned, and the wish shrine reflected a message for help from Li Wu to him. This piece of information contained what Li Wu was going through right now: interesting, being chased by a mysterious monster. You have to pay a sufficient price before I can save you. As for our previous contract, after you die, I can still see the marks in your soul. Lin Yi conveyed his meaning through the wish shrine without any burden. He had no intention of saving Li Wu because of their previous contract. This piece of information instantly appeared in Li Wu's mind. A sense of urgency arose in his heart, as well as a sense of joy. Obviously the other party could save him. Just the fact that this mysterious power transmitted information in his mind out of thin air shocked him. Mr. Lin, are 100 million in assets enough? Come and save me once. Obviously, Li Wu didn't want to spend his life in exchange for a life-saving opportunity, but wanted to use the money that was readily available. Unfortunately, Lin Yi saw through his thoughts at a glance. I said, money in this world means nothing to me. The only thing you are useful to me is your life, soul, Dao marks, or some kind of talent. Talent is a newly discovered trading item that Lin Yi can accept. He saw Dao marks from the painter, which could not only be achieved by masters of martial arts. Even an ordinary person, as long as he reaches the peak of a certain ability, enters the ranks of Tao, and condenses his own principles, he can still give birth to a Tao mark. Although this principle has nothing to do with martial arts, it represents an acquired principle. Lin Yi saw clearly that there was a limit to how much martial arts could be condensed. And almost all of them are related to combat, so there must be some kind of restrictions. Only the Dao marks that can be condensed by various other talents can make up for these one-sided Dao marks and form the truly perfect acquired Dao marks. For example, the painter's Dao marks include his various understandings of color, light, texture, shape, etc., as well as his strong personal color ideas. What does he think the theory of painting is? In this world, there are only a limited number of people who practice martial arts. Even if Lin Yi creates a boxing technique that can be popularized by all mankind. But those who can truly reach the pinnacle of boxing skills are also very rare. And if he wants to get information about their Taoism from these people who are at the top of their boxing skills, it is not that simple. These people are determined, and unless they have a last resort or reason, it is impossible to use their Daohan information to do business with them. Therefore, if he wants to get more Dao marks, he must find other methods. And all he thought about was talent. A person's talent may be limited, but as long as enough talents of the same nature are gathered together, a superb talent may be born. Then he exchanged this talent to ordinary people through a contract, allowing those ordinary people to reach the pinnacle of this talent path. Finally, let the other party condense the Dao mark of this talent as a condition for exchanging talents. Over time, Lin Yi will have a stable Dao mark income, and finally condense the perfect Dao mark world, which is applicable to all heavens, all realms, and all time and space. Even in the process of condensing the Daohan world, the seventh true life was deduced. And now he just wants to make the first trade. At this moment, something strange flashed through Li Wu's heart. He knew what Lin Yi meant by talent. For example, he has a special talent in a certain area. In addition to being a powerful martial artist, Li Wu is also a calligrapher. He integrated his martial arts insights into calligraphy and created his own school. He is also well known in the calligraphy world. At this time, his heart moved. I'll use my calligraphy skills in exchange for you to save me once. A faint smile appeared on Lin Yi's face. Okay. Our deal is established. Sign the contract. Li Wu had already taken out the note and rushed out of the hospital very quickly, landing in the square hall outside the hospital. He looked at the note in his hand, and the contents of the contract had already appeared on it. Without any hesitation, he bit his thumb and pressed his fingerprint on the spot where he signed. With the note pressing his bloody fingerprint, it slowly spontaneously ignited without wind and disappeared into the air. A strange force wrapped around him. At this time, Shen Wuifang, who was standing in the shadows outside the hospital, also saw this scene. The pupils in his eyes shrank slightly, and he could see the strange power, which was so deep and dark that it was unimaginably terrifying. His mind has long been incredibly powerful, and the condensed spiritual imprint has also formed its own system. They have long divided their cultivation into a system. Refining essence into Qi is the first stage of martial arts. Refining Qi into spirit is the second stage of martial arts. Refining spirit into emptiness is the third stage of martial arts. From the third stage on, it is the real watershed of martial artists, the separation between humans and immortals, because at this level, lifespan has undergone tremendous changes. In the case of the spirit and mind not decaying, their bodies can almost always remain young until the spirit and mind are completely decayed. And this limit is 300 years, just like the peak level of the ghost immortal in the Red Lotus realm. There are thousands of great ways. Different paths lead to the same destination. Any power system will always have some similarities and connections. At this time, Shen Wuifang has reached the peak of refining the spirit, and the next step is the realm of returning to emptiness. This realm is even more powerful and terrifying. It is completely a spiritual practice. Once completed, it can get rid of the restrictions of the body on the mind. The mystery in it is unfathomable. Once successful, you will be exposed to a more mysterious and great world. It is precisely because some of them have cultivated to the realm of returning to the void that they call Blue Star the red dust world. But at this time, as a peak of the soul, he saw a power that made him tremble. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 712. The nature of this power made him feel extremely threatened, and his mind was issuing the most terrifying warning. It seemed to tell him that it was a power that could kill him. What is this? A look of shock appeared on his face. At this moment, Tian Kuixing had already caught up to 10 meters behind Li Wu. Its huge body was like a heavy chariot, stomping on the ground and jumping up. The black sword light had already enveloped Li Wu. The huge sword was still in the air, and the wind pressure it brought had cut out a vacuum, and the breath of death rushed towards Li Wu. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow circled M. His pupils shrank, and all the strength in his body had been transferred to his hands. The huge magnetic field attracted the hot energy around him, and he seemed to be making a last-ditch effort. In the eyes of Tian Kuixing and Shen Wuifang, Li Wu had no chance of winning. If he confronted him head-on, he would only face death, no second possibility. At this moment, a door appeared in front of Li Wu. The door slowly opened, and 6 bloody tentacles shot out from it. They swept towards the falling Tian Kuixing in the air, and in an instant, the tentacles covered every corner of his body. Tian Kuixing looked at the 6 red shadows rushing towards him and reacted immediately. The whole person began to spin rapidly in the air, and the sword light instantly turned into countless sword shadows, slashing at all the red shadows in all directions. But something surprised him. These red tentacles were very tough. His sword could only cut these red tentacles apart, but could not cut them off. However, With the help of the collision between the sword and these shadows, he suddenly retreated a few meters and fell to the ground. Looking at the door in front of him warily, a trace of vigilance appeared in his eyes. He had a very strange feeling, dangerous, extremely dangerous. A man in a butler's uniform walked out of the door of the Wanchai. Brandy looked at Li Wu next to him with a smile on his face. "Mr. Li, please come in." Li Wu looked at Brandy and felt a little relieved. His eyes fell on Brandy's right hand. There was a blood-red ring there, and 6 strange tentacles extended from it. "I don't know what it is." He nodded and flashed into the door. At this time, Tian Kuixing's voice slowly sounded. "Who are you? How dare you stop us celestial beings? Do you want to go against us celestial beings?" Brandy glanced at Tian Kuixing, and a trace of disdain appeared in his eyes. He. Sorry. I don't know what's so great about you celestial beings. This Mr. Li Wu signed a contract with us. This time we will save him. Want his life? Come again next time. Then goodbye." After that, Brandy ignored Tian Kuixing and turned to walk towards the main door of the Wanchi house. Tian Kuixing felt that he was completely ignored, and his eyes showed an extremely angry look. "Damn it, maggot-like humans dare to ignore me. Go to hell." Roaring, he rushed towards the door of the Wanchai. The ground under his feet exploded as if hit by a shell. In an instant, he crossed a distance of 10 meters and arrived behind Brandy. The fierce sword light seemed to be able to cut through everything, even if the sword pressure formed by the impact force of several tons at the lowest. This force can easily tear everything apart. But 6 blood-colored tentacles have spread out from the 4 sides out of thin air, like a big net blocking him behind Brandy. Including the sword he chopped down, it was also tightly wrapped in the blood-colored tentacles. The picture was very strange at this time. The 6 tentacles were tied to various parts of Tian Kuixing's body, making him unable to move forward. The huge sword was almost 1 foot away from Brandy's head. A huge airflow rushed over Brandy's head, but it did not cause any harm to him. Brandy turned his head and looked at him quietly, with a disdainful smile on his lips. "If it weren't for the restrictions of this world, you wouldn't even be qualified to raise your weapon in front of me." As a strong man at the peak of the human immortal path, his pure lethality is far greater than that of the warriors in this world. If he could freely use his skills in this world, Tian Kuixing would be invincible like a biochemical tank. But in front of him, it was like a cardboard that would break with a poke. The most terrifying thing about the skills of the Red Lotus realm is the pure destructive power. After all, the ultimate goal of the Red Lotus realm's cultivation is to pursue the mastery of the 5 innate essences. Click. The door of the Wanchai closed, and Brandy disappeared in front of Tian Kuixing. The blood-colored tentacles around Tian Kuixing also slowly disappeared into the air. Boom! The terrifying and huge force suddenly hit the ground, splitting the earth with a sword. Tian Kuixing's anger almost ignited the 9 heavens. He couldn't believe it. There were such arrogant people in the world who dared to ignore him like this. But he felt a little scared in his heart. Because he could see the disdain in Brandy's eyes, which was real disdain. He didn't care about the power he showed. He had never seen such contempt before, as if he was facing an unimaginable high-level existence. Who is he? In addition to anger in his mind, there was also a trace of calmness. At this time, the sound of sirens in the distance was getting closer and closer, awakening Tian Kuixing from his meditation. He turned and walked in the direction he came from. At this time, Shen Wuifang looked at this direction quietly, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. What is that? In his eyes, the world is no longer the original world, but is composed of countless energies, space, and time. And just now, a door composed of pure black power opened a hole in the space and connected to an unknown place. This shocked him very much, because even he, a peak existence of the soul refining, can't open the channel of space. That is only when you really step into the realm of transformation, the mind and the Dao mark are perfectly integrated, and a qualitative change occurs, it is possible to pry the power of time and space. For the first time, he was shocked and a little shocked by the person who appeared behind Li Wu. Blue Star martial arts has developed to this day, with a history of more than tens of thousands of years, and there are not many who can enter the realm of transformation. Each of them is a world-shaking existence, even in the place where he came from, he is definitely a hegemon. But if you want to open a space channel, it will never be so simple and easy. Who is behind this? A trace of admiration flashed in his heart, and there was also a trace of strong interest. At this time, his eyes fell on Tian Kuixing, who wanted to leave, and a trace of murderous intent appeared in his eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 713. Tian Kuixing gave him a very terrifying and powerful feeling. In terms of pure body, it had surpassed his physical strength. The strength of the body cannot be achieved at the stage of refining the spirit and returning to the void, because the physical structure is not yet something he can change. But when the martial arts enters the realm of refining the void, they have the opportunity to break the limit. God, I never thought that this method would be used to break the limits of physics. This is a body created by technological products in the world of mortals. It is completely inhuman. Along the way, his biggest gain was his understanding of the human technological system. This is a civilization system that is completely different from martial arts, and it has strong popularity and can directly explore the mysteries of the world. Even he, if faced with human weapons, would die under siege. Flesh and blood will always be flesh and blood and cannot withstand steel and gunfire. However, martial arts is not just about physical strength, especially at his level. The power of the mind is the most terrifying, it is the power that can distort reality. Making false claims come true is no joke. Then let me give it a try. Have you made any progress over the years? Thinking of this, a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. His feet touched the ground lightly, and a faint wave of energy flickered around him. In the next moment, he had crossed a distance of hundreds of meters and was directly a few meters behind Tian Kuixing. Tian Kuixing seemed to be aware of it and turned around to look behind him. When he saw Shen Wuifang, his pupils suddenly shrank, and he saw an extremely terrifying existence. The other person's spiritual fluctuations made him feel an instinctive trembling. In his eyes, Shen Wuifang seemed like an infinite starry sky. Without any hesitation, he directly swung the giant sword in his hand and struck the opponent head-on. A mysterious light flashed in Shen Wuifang's eyes, and in the next moment, a huge spiritual power directly enveloped Tian Kuixing, who was rushing towards him. This power was so mysterious and unbelievable that in an instant, Tian Kuixing's body that was charging towards him froze. Tian Kuixing's body, deeply rooted in this biochemical warfare body, seemed to be pulled into a wonderful world. In a world like a cosmic starry sky, a strange humanoid figure shrouded in countless smoke appeared here. It has a body like a human, with strong muscles covered with fine black scales. It has 3 eyes on its head, 2 curved horns, and a pair of dark wings covered with scales on its back. It looks like some kind of demon, bringing infinite terror to people. Black flames spurted out from his body, which were spiritual flames, burning the surrounding void. It seems that he wants to ignite all the stars in the sky and then break out. But this is destined to be just his imagination. His black flame only caused countless distortions in this mysterious starry sky. It is just a drop in the ocean compared to the entire starry sky. The figure of Shen Wuifang appeared here. He quietly looked at the demon in the flames. Heaven-level combat power among heavenly beings. Let me introduce myself. I am one of the 12 true immortals of Kungsu Palace. Shen Wuifang. When you fall into the abyss of your soul, don't forget to say my name. After the words fell, Shen Wuifang pointed his finger at Tian Kuixing. In an instant, the stars were spinning. Big stars fell from the sky and crashed towards Tian Kuixing. Tian Kuixing looked at the falling stars all around and his expression changed drastically. A roar? The whole body swelled up, hundreds and thousands of feet high. In this spiritual world, physical limitations no longer exist. Everything is a competition of the soul, a battle of the spirit. Like a demon, it slapped its palm towards the countless stars falling from the sky. A star struck his palm. The black flames rushed into the stars and ignited them instantly. Rumble. In the huge explosion, the stars were shattered into pieces, and this was just the beginning of everything. Countless stars fell like raindrops, and countless powers exploded from the demon god's body. The arms almost turned into phantoms with thousands of hands, slapping towards the falling stars one after another. The stars exploded and turned into countless fragments, but Tian Kuixing didn't feel any joy. Because more stars are falling? Just a few thousand stars now, tens of thousands now. Bang! Finally, a star passed through his palm and hit him hard on his back. He stumbled and rolled in the void before he could react. It has been overwhelmed by countless stars. Countless stars collided with his body. Countless black flames were smashed out. Countless cracks also appeared on his body. Ah! No, how could it be? Damn reptile, how could I die in your hands? Get out of my way. With a crazy roar, Tian Kuixing let out a furious cry, and once again burst out with black flames all over his body. The surrounding void was distorted, as if the whole world could not bear this kind of flame. But at this moment, more stars fell from the sky. If it was tens of thousands just now, then it is hundreds of thousands and millions now. It was an extremely spectacular scene, with billions of galaxies crashing towards Tian Kuixing. Rumble. Ka-ka-ka. The sound is rare, the elephant is invisible. In just a moment, he was completely submerged by the stars. Countless black fragments appeared in this space, and the brilliance of billions of stars seemed to turn into starfire, wrapping these countless fragments. The next moment, countless fragments were all ignited and turned into wisps of pure black smoke. Finally, the black smoke gathered into a black crystal bead in front of Shen Wuifang. Holding this crystal bead in his hand, Shen Wuifang's eyes showed a hint of thought. Just right, a heavenly relic, if I meet that store manager Lin. As a bargaining chip, it's just right. An inexplicable smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and the next moment, this world in the mind and spirit disappeared. Shen Wuifang's spirit has returned to reality, and there is only a body full of vitality but without any spiritual fluctuations standing in front of him. The body of Tian Kuixing has been extracted and killed by him. He shook his head slightly, putting the cart before the horse. No matter how strong the body is, without a strong spirit, it is just a pig. You can kill it at will. He turned and walked out of the hospital gate, where countless police cars had arrived. But no one noticed Shen Wuifang's appearance, and everyone would naturally ignore him. After Shen Wuifang walked out of the hospital, he looked in a direction and quickly walked towards a village in Jingjing City. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 714. At this time in the Wanqi house, Lin Yi looked at Li Wu with a strange smile on his face. You just broke through the realm, how come you encountered such a thing? That seems to be a celestial being, why did he come to hunt you alone? Li Wu had a bitter smile on his face, I don't know. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully, now our contract is complete, your calligraphy talent will be used as a reward for saving you this time. Li Wu's face was solemn, okay, our deal is complete, I have no objection. The next moment, a mysterious light emerged from Li Wu's body. This light quickly gathered in front of Lin Yi and turned into a bead shining with green light. Lin Yi looked at this gem, as if he saw a very talented person, writing hard and practicing various fonts. Nodding, he put away the crystal of calligraphy talent. No matter who it is, as long as they can swallow this gem, they will inherit this talent for calligraphy and will be easier to get started in calligraphy. If you study harder, then becoming a calligraphy master is not a dream. However, if you want to condense your own principles in calligraphy, truly form your own school, and achieve spiritual transformation, it is impossible to achieve it with just this one talent crystal bead. The potential of a single talent is limited, but if the talents of several or dozens of people are integrated into one, then this person's gains and learning ability in calligraphy will reach an unprecedented level. At this time, Lin Yi was perfecting his plan bit by bit. His eyes fell on Li Wu. Now you have broken through the realm of the mind. Condensed your own Dao mark. Then it's time to fulfill the contract between us. Li Wu nodded, no problem, our contract is reached. As his voice fell, a wonderful and strange force appeared out of thin air. In an instant, it connected to the deepest part of his spirit and enveloped his Dao mark. Then, the countless information in his Dao mark was automatically copied by this strange force, turning into a black crystal, slowly floating out, and appeared in front of Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked at the black crystal, stretched out his hand to pick it up, and then swallowed it directly. Countless information rushed to his clone's brain and spirit. At this time, Li Wu's life seemed to appear in Lin Yi's spirit, from practicing boxing when he was young, to the helplessness of old age, to the excitement of regaining hope when he met Lin Yi. In this process, all the changes in his spirit were shown in Lin Yi's spirit. There was no secret. Until the last battle with Xuanhuan, the moment of life and death, the last moment of his spiritual transformation, all were clearly presented in Lin Yi's eyes. Everything was absorbed by him. Li Wu's philosophy, his principles, his life, and finally turned into a Dao mark. The completion of the Dao mark. Lin Yi thoroughly understood the whole process. Then his heart moved slightly. In his huge spirit, a trace of spirit began to connect with each other, constructing a wonderful structure. Then a brand new Dao mark was formed, but in this Dao mark, there was no life experience. Only a pure understanding of martial arts, a perception of life, and the principles summarized and concluded. The most important thing is that this Dao mark is obviously different from Li Wu's Dao mark, that is, there is no personal color in it. It is like a perfect machine without a master. Very clean. After completing this Dao mark, Lin Yi suddenly felt that his spirit was undergoing a rapid transformation. Connected to an unknown place. He felt that his mind seemed to be liberated, and a wonderful power flowed out from his mind. Flowed out along the Dao mark and covered his whole body. This feeling is a bit similar to the spiritual wave. But the two are different. The spiritual wave will not affect any substance at all. But this power flowing out of the mind, it merged with the spiritual magnetic field of his clone and the life magnetic field. He slowly raised his hand, and the dead energy in the air around him slowly gathered in his hand under the attraction of his magnetic field that had undergone a qualitative change. This group of pure power without any spirituality was under his control. But along with the control of this group of energy, the magnetic field on his body was slightly consumed. However, this consumption is mainly the consumption of spiritual power. And power was flowing out of his mind continuously, replenishing this consumption. He felt it carefully, and the consumption of spiritual energy accounted for about 80% of the total consumption, the life magnetic field accounted for 10%, and the spiritual magnetic field accounted for 10%. This is a very amazing ratio, that is to say, for the control of the energy of this world, the mind is the main role, and the physical and mental magnetic fields are only auxiliary. He has more guesses about the future path of the warriors in this world. At this time, the second Dao mark appeared in his hand. This Dao mark is the Dao mark he got from the painter. At that time, he had not used it, but just kept studying it. Now that he has officially condensed his own Dao mark, he has sufficient experience in how to condense the Dao. First, he needs to eliminate the strong personal imprint experience in the Dao mark and only keep the purest part related to the truth. He swallowed the real Dao mark in one gulp, and then the Dao mark rushed directly into Lin Yi's spirit. But this Dao mark had a strong personal imprint, which caused a fierce conflict with Lin Yi's spirit. However, Lin Yi's spirit rushed towards this Dao mark like a savage beast. The personal marks inside are being washed away by his spirit, and then he uses his own spirit to fill the holes in these personal marks, and finally gradually turns this Dao mark into his own Dao mark. This is another brand new method of condensing Dao marks. The first way to condense Dao marks is to learn the essence and principles of the other party's Dao marks, eliminate personal energy information, etc. In the end, a new Dao mark was condensed, which did not contain any personal color, thereby breaking the uniqueness of the Dao mark. The second type of Dao mark is to replace the strong personal mark in the Dao mark with your own spirit, turning the opponent's Dao mark into your own. At this time, Lin Yi was mentally comparing the two Dao marks. Soon he discovered some problems. His own spirit was integrated into the painter's Dao mark. In order to maintain the existence of this Dao mark, he naturally occupied part of his spirit. This will put a little invisible pressure on his spirit. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 715. At this moment, his heart moved slightly, and the Dao mark from the painter collapsed in an instant, and turned into countless information and spirits again. The spirit returned to Lin Yi's own spirit, and countless information was also received and absorbed by Lin Yi's spirit. These information were quickly understood by Lin Yi, and after experiencing the process of the painter's condensation of Dao mark, the information containing strong personal characteristics was completely eliminated. Only the pure principles, techniques, and understandings related to painting were left. And Lin Yi used this information as the foundation and used his spirit to instantly reconstruct a Dao mark. At this time, the structure of this Dao mark is basically the same as that of the painter's Dao mark. This is the information contained in it, and it has less personal things. And this Dao mark completely belongs to Lin Yi and has become a part of his spirit. However, this Dao mark is only one half of the original painter's Dao seeing, and it is also 1/20th of Li Wu's Dao mark, and the volume has been reduced. However, at this time, two Dao marks were slowly moving in Lin Yi's mind. The small painter's Dao mark surrounded Li Wu's boxing Dao mark, moving like a satellite. Lin Yi felt the painter's Dao mark, which was an understanding of colors, lines, painting, and techniques. At this time, Lin Yi looked at everyone in the Wanqi house. He saw everyone's movements in an instant, as well as what they were going to do in the next moment, their muscle contours, and their expressions. All their actions were as clear as a painting in his eyes. Lin Yi slowly raised his hand and gently sketched in the air. The flow of air seemed to form a painting at his fingertips. This was not just a flat painting, but even a three-dimensional painting. That was the world of airflow. He had a deeper feeling for the world around him, a feeling similar to control. That is to say, the painter's Dao mark is powerful because of his mastery of the surrounding environment. This is somewhat similar to talent. But talent is purely based on the body's bloodline genes. But this Dao mark can be said to be a spiritual talent. One law, 100 laws. Instantly, the ability given to him by the painter's Dao mark made him feel a familiar feeling, which reminded him of the talent of bloodline. It is true that there are thousands of great ways, but they all lead to the same destination. Talents on the spiritual level, talents on the material level. Interesting, it is really interesting. At this time, Lin Yi was more and more looking forward to Dao Mark. It seems that I have to get more talents through the Wish Shrine. At the same time, give the same type of talent to one person, let them play, and finally condense Dao Mark for my use. This will be a long process and it will take a lot of time to complete. A slight smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and Lin Yi knew what path he should take in the future. Ring, ring, ring. The door of the Wanchaiwu was suddenly pushed open, and a figure walked in slowly. The visitor was Shen Wuifang. He had actually known about the existence of the Wanchaiwu from Li Wu, but he had not originally planned to go directly to the door. But when Li Wu was suddenly attacked and then rescued by Brandy, after seeing the whole process, he knew that it was impossible for him to wait for the other party to come to Li Wu. Because Li Wu had already entered the other party's territory, the rewards of Li Wu and Lin Yi would probably be taken back at the same time. After the reward was taken back, the other party would definitely not look for Li Wu again. Now only he came to the door. At this time, Li Wu had already left the Wanchaiwu. Hearing the doorbell, Lin Yi turned his head and his eyes fell on Shen Wuifang. The light of the true destiny in his eyes flashed, and he saw through Shen Wuifang in an instant. Then he felt a little surprised, the extremely rich spiritual light, full of various mysterious colors. That was the display of the Dao Mark after the integration of the spiritual power. A total of 99 kinds of Dao Mark light, intertwined to form a perfect whole. It was a 99-sided crystal, and the light formed an illusory appearance, covering Shen Wuifang in it and isolating him from all external influences. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi was very shocked. This was the first time he saw it, and he mastered the existence of multiple Dao traces. And the number reached 99, which was very terrifying. His face became serious in an instant, and he looked at Shen Wuifang in front of him and smiled slightly. "Hello, sir, welcome to the Wanchaiwu. I am the manager of Wanchaiwu, Lin Yi." Shen Wuifang looked at the person who claimed to be the manager in front of him and frowned slightly. With his eyesight, he naturally saw Lin Yi's level, just an ordinary God general level. That is, he had just entered the level of refining the spirit, which was 1,000,000 miles away from him. If the person in front of him was the mysterious person Li Wu said, then he would be very disappointed. If this person's true cultivation is only this level, that means he must have some kind of treasure in his hand that allowed him to do all these incredible things. Test it first, this thought flashed through Shen Wuifang's mind, and then he smiled faintly at Lin Yi. "Hello, Manager Lin, my name is Shen Wuifang. Please sit down." The two of them sat in front of the French window, and Brandy came over with a smile. "Sir, would you like something to drink?" Shen Wuifang shook his head and said, "No." Bai Lan nodded, said nothing, and turned back to his bar. Then Mr. Shen Wuifang, what do you want to see me for? Lin Yi naturally knew that the person in front of him had been staring at him since he entered the door. Although the other person's eyes were not always looking at him, his mind was always locked on him. Shen Wuifang looked at Lin Yi and said with a slight smile, "I have met Li Wu. According to my observation, his spirit has experienced at least several decades of time, leaving traces of time. But his body looks only about 20 years old. My guess is that he should have never taken elixirs or other means to restore his youth. Later I found him and asked him, and then I knew about your existence. So I am very interested, what exactly is the lifespan in your hand? It can make a person completely rejuvenated without any traces. At the same time, I want to make a deal with you." "What deal?" Lin Yi smiled at the Shen Wuifang in front of him. The colorful crystal-like area formed by the spiritual light that permeated the other party's body. It was filled with a wonderful magnetic field, blocking Lin Yi's true destiny. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 716. Although this was only because Lin Yi did not use the true destiny Daoji with all his strength, this was the first time he encountered a force that could resist the true destiny. Sure enough, the true destiny and the power of the mind are closely related. At this time, Shen Wuifang looked at Lin Yi and said calmly and slowly, "I have a celestial relic here. It is the origin of a celestial being I just killed. Anyone who practices martial arts, as long as he swallows this celestial relic, use your spirit to refine and absorb it, you can polish your own spirit to the state of great perfection. At the same time, you can also comprehend the natural spiritual imprint condensed in this relic. After absorbing and understanding the spiritual imprint in it, you can condense your own spiritual imprint more easily. If you are a person who has already condensed your own spiritual imprint, after taking this celestial relic, there is a high probability that you will condense your own second spiritual imprint." Lin Yi listened to Shen Wuifang's words, and a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. He watched a black crystal appear in Shen Wushuan's hands, which was condensed by a wonderful power. It does not contain any spirituality. It seems substantial, but it is actually an invisible thing. It is filled with a kind of spiritual power, the origin of heaven and man. Lin Yi did not reach out to take this thing, but looked at this wonderful crystal with a faint light in his eyes. He could see that there was something like a Dao mark in this crystal. However, this Dao mark is different from the normal Dao mark. The difference lies in the strong personal imprint. Whether it is Li Wu or the painter, the Dao mark is filled with a strong, positive personal information, at least it can be called life. The personal characteristics filled in this crystal are full of a sense of inanimateness. Cold, cruel, all negative things are gathered in the Dao mark, distorted spiritual information. The Dao mark is basically divided into two parts in Lin Yi's heart. One part is pure, without any emotional cognition and reason. The other part is information with strong personal characteristics. And now the difference lies in personal information. The personal information of Li Wu and the painter contains a kind of life, belief, and so on. The personal information in this heavenly man origin contains an inhuman distortion. It can be understood that any intelligent life will not have this kind of information. Even the most unintelligent animals or insects will not have such personal information. This makes Lin Yi very curious. What will happen if a normal person refines this heavenly man origin? With a thought in his mind, he has already calculated the consequences. The cultivator who refines this heavenly man origin will have his spirit and soul polluted and assimilated, and eventually become a brand new heavenly man. Moreover, Lin Yi also discovered that this Dao mark has a peculiar characteristic. This characteristic is that the personal information in the Dao mark and the Dao mark's principles are completely combined, two sides of the same coin. This means that this personal information cannot be expelled, because once it is expelled, it means the collapse of the principles. In the same way, this thing cannot be absorbed and refined like the painter's Dao mark. Only like Li Wu's Dao mark, Lin Yi can understand and absorb all the information in it. Then, with his own spirit as the core, this information was rewoven into a new Dao mark. Then this Tianren relic would no longer have any effect on him. However, this Tianren origin? Dao mark is only the core part of it. It also has a part that is made up of pure spirit. Spirit is an invisible product of the soul, but it actually exists. However, only those who have mastered the spirit can touch it. The spirit also has strong personal characteristics in nature. Two different spirits cannot merge with each other. So special methods are needed to cleanse the spirit. Only when it is thoroughly cleaned and does not contain any personal characteristics, the remaining part can be used to strengthen one's own spirit. This Tianren origin? The spiritual part of it is completely a pure spirit composed of a filthy negative emotion. This spirit itself represents negativity. If you want to clean it and turn it into a usable spirit, you must need a special method. In just a dozen seconds, Lin Yi has calculated all the uses of this Tianren relic. He looked up at Shen Wuifang in front of him. The relic of the heavenly being is full of negative spirits, and the Dao marks are also full of destructiveness. Normal martial arts masters are basically unable to absorb and utilize the things inside. Since you took it out, there should be a way to utilize the power inside, probably some special method. In my case, its value is probably equal to 10 years of life. As he spoke, a crystal flashing with milky white light appeared in Lin Yi's hand. This is lifespan. About 10 years. If you agree, we can exchange. Shen Wuifang looked at the milky white crystal in front of him. There was a hint of surprise and instinctive desire in his eyes. Although he had stepped into the peak of soul refining, his control over his own cells and genes had reached the limit. He could even control the fine end-grain cracks to return to the original level. But his lifespan is still only 300 years. Because his spirit will eventually decay. But when he saw this lifespan, he knew. This is something that can completely increase the life limit of the soul and body. There was a trace of amazing light in his eyes. He looked at Lin Yi with some shock. How did you get this thing? Lin Yi glanced at him and smiled faintly. Lifespan naturally comes from people who have lifespan. Isn't it? In an instant. Shen Wuifang knew what the source of this lifespan was. His eyes condensed, looking at Lin Yi in front of him, he could understand what the other party meant. In other words, this lifespan was taken from others. Although he didn't know what this technology was, it didn't prevent him from understanding the evil of this technology. Taking lifespan from others is a huge problem no matter how you look at it. At this time, Lin Yi looked at him, and a faint smile appeared on his face. I won't cheat, I will only trade fairly. Including lifespan, everything was obtained through reasonable transactions, with the consent of both parties. I am a businessman who adheres to the principle of equal exchange, not a robber or a villain. So now you want to do business with me. Shen Wuifang took a deep breath and looked at Lin Yi calmly. Of course. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 717. Lin Yi smiled faintly, and a note appeared in his hand and was placed in front of Shen Wuifang. This is our contract. We can start trading after signing it. Contract. Shen Wuifang picked up the note and frowned slightly. He glanced at the words on it. He didn't know them, but he knew what they meant instantly. His heart trembled slightly. This was a wonderful power that appeared directly in his mind. The content was very simple, which was to guarantee their transaction. You must not deliberately deceive the other party, otherwise you will face the punishment of death, and it is a two-way constraint. It not only constrains him, but also constrains Lin Yi. Shen Wuifang wrote his name without hesitation, because he wanted to see what form this contract was fulfilled. As he signed the contract, the note ignited without wind, and a wonderful power connected him and Lin Yi. The next moment, he felt that he and Lin Yi seemed to be connected by something in the dark. At this time, Lin Yi pushed Xuanhuan in front of Shen Wuifang. This is the life you want to exchange, and this is my heavenly origin. When you pick up this life, our transaction will be officially over. Frowning, Shen Wuifang reached out and picked up the life crystal in front of him, and Lin Yi also picked up the heavenly origin. Then a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. He found that the mysterious power between him and Lin Yi was connected to this life crystal. Then this wonderful power disappeared in an instant. He thought in his heart that this power should be checking the authenticity of the life crystal. When the life crystal is real, this power will naturally lose its meaning of existence and then disappear. If this crystal is fake, the power will really take effect, and the result will inevitably be very terrifying. He can feel that there is no problem with this life crystal, as pure as if it were something he made himself, and he knows it like the back of his hand. Instinctively, he swallowed the life crystal in one gulp. The next moment, he felt a wonderful power that quickly filled his body, mind, and soul. At this moment, he seemed to be 10 years younger, and 10 years younger from the perspective of the soul. However, the years he experienced did not disappear, but the limit of his soul decay was extended by 10 years. This was a change that surprised him. He looked at Lin Yi deeply and felt a shock. Everything was true, and the other party did not lie to him at all. At the same time, a thought arose in his mind: he can get life and can make such a deal. No matter how you look at it, it is absolutely impossible for him to be just a martial arts master at the level of refining spirits. This person must have a secret, and this secret supports him to engage in this incredible business. It seems that I need to observe him for a long time. At this moment, he was extremely fortunate to come to this world of mortals. Because here, he saw some incredible people and things. Shen Wuifang left after completing the transaction, without doing any strange movements, and left so simply. Lin Yi began to study the origin of the celestial being in his hand. He was very interested in the celestial being. This thing may be used to create a celestial being. For research. Deep underground in Jingguan City, in the mysterious celestial being base. The leader of the celestial beings here, Sanri, had a solemn look on his face. They had lost the information of Tian Kuixing, and the opponent's fluctuations had just completely disappeared. Their thoughts were constantly communicating in this space. What happened? Why did Tian Kuixing's aura disappear? He died. Who did it? He died without any trace of fighting. Could it be that a sun-level being came to Jingguan City? As the top combat power among the celestial beings, Sanri naturally understood the weaknesses of the biochemical combat body. Although the physical aspect is very powerful and irresistible, the mental aspect is still only at the heavenly level. If you encounter a sun-level being, you are no match at all. The opponent only needs to attack at the spiritual level to invalidate the effect of the biochemical combat body. The sun level corresponds to the strong and wise among humans, and was also called a god general or hero in ancient times. But there are also strong and weak people of this level. The weaker heaven level combat power can also fight to a certain extent, at least it will not die so quickly, and it will always make some noise. Being eliminated so silently, those who can do it must be the top level strongmen among the gods. Has a top level god appeared in Jingguan City? This is very dangerous. Thinking of this, Sanri's eyes showed a trace of solemnity. Tian Kuixing, go and find out what happened in the city recently. Pay special attention to whether there are any human god-level masters. One of the dozens of shadows slowly floated out and quickly went to the ground. A few minutes later, this figure entered a mansion and sneaked into the body of the owner of the mansion. The owner of the mansion, who was already like a living dead, quickly opened his eyes. Tianting Xing, the body he possessed was the richest man in Jingguan City, Mr. Tang Si. But no one knew that Mr. Tang Si had been possessed by a celestial being. At this time, Mr. Tang Si sat up from his bed, picked up the phone and dialed a number. Check for me, has anyone from the boxing world come to Jingguan City recently? Report to me as soon as you have the news. Mobilize all intelligence systems with all your strength. Yes, Mr. Si. He is not only one of the rich men in Jingguan City, but also the leader of the underground forces in Jingguan City. He has a significant influence in both the black and white worlds. Mr. Tang Xi's eyes showed a trace of solemnity, standing by his window, looking at the outside world. The prosperous streets of human beings, the brightly lit buildings, and various gorgeous buildings made him feel very bad. This is the civilization created by humans, brilliant and beautiful, even surpassing the prosperity when they controlled the world in ancient times. The creatures that they regarded as maggots actually created such a brilliant civilization, which made him feel a little jealous and angry. His eyes were cold and full of murderous intent. Maggots should live like maggots. Who allowed you to create a brilliant civilization? Who allowed you to shine? You should rot in the ground like mud. Sooner or later we will take back the whole world and turn you into slaves again. All prosperity must be destroyed and turned into cruelty and purgatory. The plan to destroy the world has been launched, and you won't be able to jump for much longer. There was a trace of cold murderous intent in his eyes, full of coldness and terror. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 718. At this time, in the underground laboratory, Sanri looked at his kin in the shadows. This time, the latest news about Wanjinchinj has come. A mysterious substance seems to have appeared in Wanjin City. This substance can infect all life. Not even us heavenly beings are immune. Wanjin City has now become a dead land. The part where the YZ army entered Wanjin City was almost completely wiped out. Everyone in the city has turned into a zombie. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Even part of the celestial team that entered inside, 108 prefecture-level combatants, almost all died except for one who escaped. This incident even shocked the god emperors of various countries. Now we must always be vigilant and pay attention to this mysterious force. Once it appears within our range, we must immediately prepare to evacuate. At the same time, we have to wait in Jingguan City for the latest orders from the god emperor. Next, we must maintain a lurking state and pay attention to changes in the human world at any time. Remember, you must use your identity to collect more intelligence, especially the intelligence of Wanjinchinj. Let's adjourn now. Yes, Master Mikazuki. A group of heavenly beings left this dark underground laboratory one after another and headed towards their possessed bodies in Jingguan City. On the third day, he stayed alone in this laboratory, quietly looking at the petri dishes here. The biochemical warfare body inside will be the most basic combat unit of Tianren in the future. Even the weakest Earth-level heavenly being will have a perfect biological body. Basically, except for human heavy weapons, rocket launchers, heavy artillery, metal storms and other weapons. Other light and medium weapons cannot harm the biochemical warfare body at all. I wonder how the mass production plan of the God Emperor is going. Once completed, our numerical weaknesses will be addressed. By merging those degraded human-level celestial beings and biochemical warfare bodies, we can truly launch a world-destroying war. Heavenly beings are using human technology to improve and supplement their own shortcomings. Not only humans are becoming stronger with technology, but so are the heavenly beings. Wanjin City now turned into a place that looked like a ghost land. There are some weird-looking humans wandering in the streets and alleys. Some of the variants are particularly eye-catching. Their bodies are either very tall, or dozens or hundreds of bodies are connected together to form a huge collection of monsters. There are also monsters whose bodies are completely distorted and transformed into inhuman objects. They would even fight with each other, and they would not stop killing each other until several areas were formed in the city and several of the most terrifying monsters appeared. It seems like territory is being carved out between them. With the emergence of these more powerful monsters, strange changes are occurring throughout Wanjin City. Some inexplicable black substances began to appear in every corner of Wanjin City. There are these black spots on the ground and on various buildings, and they are spreading throughout the city. In an underground vault. There are dozens of people hiding here. The outside has turned into a world of devils. Only a handful of people can survive. They almost always hide in this solid underground bunker. Many of these people have some martial arts skills, otherwise it would be almost impossible to survive. Ordinary people are no match for those mutated monsters. Even these martial arts masters are only a little stronger than these ordinary people. Moreover, these monsters have very powerful self-healing abilities. Even if their heads are cut off, their limbs will only be temporarily unable to move, which does not mean death. Over time, their damage will be repaired and they will be alive and kicking again. There are men and women in this underground vault, and all of them are dirty at this time. Everyone's body was filled with a bad smell, and it was obvious that they had not taken a shower for quite some time. A man with a gun in his hand looked slumped. He was the president of this bank. When the crisis came, he opened the underground vault as soon as possible. Mastering weapons at the same time, he brought all the people in the bank under the vault. When the bank's vault was built, it had the function of avoiding disasters. There is a certain amount of emergency supplies and water inside, as well as independent toilets and so on. It is enough to accommodate hundreds of people for a month, but it only lasts for a month. And now they have been there for 7 or 8 days, and the rescue they were looking forward to has never arrived. The radio signal cannot be sent out. The entire Xuanhuan city seems to have become an isolated island. There were more than 30 people in the underground vault, 8 of whom were guests. The others were all bank employees. And among these 8 guests, 5 are the owners of the martial arts street. Originally, they wanted to take out all the money they had in the bank and then go to other cities for development. But unexpectedly something unexpected happened and they were stopped here. Even though they were angry, they had no choice but to do it because they had already seen the horror of those mutated monsters. Can they deal with ordinary monsters? But as long as the degree of mutation is slightly higher, there is nothing they can do. Among the 5 people, one is Xuanhuan from Yalong Martial Arts School. He has been here for 8 days, and his face is getting more and more serious. He is a warrior who has touched the spiritual level. He knows the horror of those monsters. Those monsters are different from humans and have no fear. When fighting with those monsters, he used his spirit to attack, intending to influence the judgment of those monsters. But the result was useless. Those monsters have no spirit at all and attack completely based on instinct. In other words, he, a boxing master who has mastered the spirit, has no difference from ordinary boxing masters in facing these monsters except for his control over himself. This is what makes him feel the most heavy. This is a big trouble. The boxing spirit has no effect on them. I don't know what's going on outside now. There was silence in the underground vault. Everyone had a dead face. They didn't know what their fate would be. Everyone was uneasy. A female bank employee suddenly broke down and cried. "I can't stand it anymore, I can't stand it anymore, I want to get out." As she said this, she ran madly towards the exit. However, Xuanhuan flashed behind her and tapped her shoulder lightly, and she fainted. She didn't have the slightest chance to resist. Xuanhuan caught the female employee, dragged her back to where she was, and threw her on the ground. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 719. Now is not the time to go crazy, he said calmly, looking at everyone here. You have to believe it. As one of the most important cities, Xuanhuan City cannot be abandoned casually. The situation is more complicated now, but rescue will definitely come. It's just a matter of time. I'll go out and take a look later. You guys stay here quietly. As he spoke, he looked at the other 5 other martial arts gym owners. There was a trace of solemnity in his eyes. Guys, who of you would like to go with me? We need to at least go out and understand the current situation. It would be a little dangerous if you were alone. A middle-aged man who looked to be about 35 years old stood up. This man was 2 meters tall with a huge back and waist, and looked like a humanoid Tyrannosaurus. His hands were equipped with more than a dozen steel rings, and his arms were very thick. His name is Li Chungang. He practices foreign kung fu. He is made of copper skin and iron bones. He is very powerful, and he is also a master of boxing skills. The owner of the Hong Family Boxing Martial Arts School. Tour Master, I will go with you. Yu Sihai looked at Li Chungang and nodded, okay, Mr. Li's boxing method is best for head-to-head encounters. With the two of us working together, ordinary monsters will be easier to deal with. After choosing the people to go out with, Yu Sihai and Li Chungang left the underground vault without wasting any time. They soon arrived at the bank hall. Their breathing was very low as they moved, and there was almost no sound coming from their feet. The two walked side by side, always paying attention to the front, back, and left. The spirit is highly concentrated, feeling the danger that may appear at any time. They stood behind the bank counter in the lobby, looking out through the bulletproof glass. There were some wandering figures there, some completely changed beyond recognition. These monsters seemed to be changing and becoming more inhuman. Although not necessarily more powerful, they are more terrifying. When Yu Sihai and Li Chungang saw this scene, their faces showed a trace of solemnity. The monster seems to be undergoing an astonishing transformation, and its aura is even more dangerous than in the past few days. The two looked at each other with a hint of horror in their eyes. The more inhuman the monsters are, the more powerful they are. Pure physical power has begun to surpass the limitations of human bodies. Yu Sihai and Li Chungang squatted down quietly without letting themselves be seen by anything outside. If things outside change every day and continue like this, I'm afraid Wanjin City will be abandoned and turned into a real dead place. Want to break out? I'm afraid we only have a day or two. Li Chunggang's face was calm and his eyes were deep. He didn't know what he was thinking. After hearing Li Chunggang's words, Yu Sihai naturally knew what the other party meant. Those who should give up must give up. It's not worth risking their own lives. Yu Sihai was silent for a moment and took a deep breath. You're right. Let's discuss it with those people when we get back. In the underground vault, Yu Sihai and Li Chungang have returned here. They told everyone directly what was going on outside. The current situation is not good. My suggestion is that a few of us who have skills work together to try it out. Come out of Wanjin City. Looking for reinforcements. Also reporting a serious situation here. Those monsters mutate every day. If this continues, I'm afraid Wanjin City will really become a dead place. Yu Sihai said calmly. At this time, the other ordinary employees in the vault all looked fearful and unwilling. No, you can't leave. You can't leave us behind. You want to escape on your own, right? Various expressions appeared on the faces of each employee. Jealousy, anger, disbelief, and despair. At this time, the other three masters ignored them and nodded in agreement. Then under the incredible eyes of the bank staff, they opened the door of the vault and left. Without a trace of nostalgia, I abandoned them all. No. Damn it, how dare they do that? At this time, everyone here was in deep fear. Are they completely abandoned? These people don't care whether they live or die. Everyone looked at each other, but no one dared to stop him because they had no power. More than 15 of the 24 employees were women, and their faces all showed a numbness of despair. In an instant, the entire vault was crying. Whoa! Mom, I miss Mom. The low cries of these women made the remaining men's expressions change. The president's face also turned livid. Everyone is filled with despair. But they could only watch people like Yu Sihai leave without daring to stop them at all, because it would kill people. It was already 1 o'clock in the night. A faint red light appeared in the underground vault. This brilliance attracted everyone's attention, and they looked at the door that appeared in the brilliance with horrified expressions. The door looks like an ordinary coffee shop. At this time, the door slowly opened, revealing a young man in uniform behind him. The young man looked only 14 or 15 years old, with a strange smile on his face, watching them quietly. Hello, guests, Welcome to the Wanchai. Here we can fulfill all your wishes. As long as you are willing to pay the price. The low voice was filled with an inexplicable coldness, ringing in everyone's ears. The vault was silent, and everyone looked at the door and the absinthe in the door in doubt. After Absinthe finished speaking, he slowly stretched out his left hand and made an invitation gesture. You can come in and sit down first. Among the 20 or so people at this time, the woman who was knocked down by Yusihai first had a hint of madness on her face. She walked out of the crowd, stumbled, and rushed directly into the door. She saw Lin Yi sitting in front of the French window. Absinthe on the side pulled open the single sofa opposite Lin Yi. Please sit down, young lady. The woman still had a trace of tears on her face at this time. She had almost completely collapsed just now. Lin Yi looked at her. Hello, I am Lin Yi, the manager of the Wanchai. I can fulfill some of your wishes. But the premise is that you need to pay the corresponding price, according to the size of your wish. The price can be a certain talent you have, your life, or your soul. So what is your wish? The woman's face flashed a hint of madness. I want to leave here, I want to leave this hell. Lin Yi smiled slightly. Of course, no problem. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 720. But if you want to leave Wanjin City, you need to pay about 10 years of life. Or a simple talent. What price do you want to pay? The woman's face flashed with confusion. I understand life, but what does talent mean? For example, a person has talents such as painting, writing, running, swimming, high jumping, etc. These are all talents. If you choose to pay for a talent, then from now on you will never do this thing again. No matter how you learn this talent, you can't master it. But pay attention, the talent you have to pay must be your outstanding talent, not an ordinary talent. The woman suddenly realized what Lin Yi said. After thinking for a moment, he looked up at Lin Yi. I have been swimming since I was a child, and I once won the first place in the competition in my hometown city. I am willing to pay this talent in exchange for the opportunity to leave Wanjin City. Lin Yi nodded, and a note appeared in his hand. This is a contract. The woman looked at the contract. Although she didn't recognize the words on it, she could naturally understand the meaning of it. Without any hesitation, she wrote down her name directly, Yu Meiling. The contract ignited without wind, and an invisible force connected to her body. At this time, Lin Yi looked at Absinthe, opened the door for her. Absinthe nodded and was about to close the door of the Wanchai. At this time, the bank staff outside changed their faces. They didn't know if Absinthe would open the door again after closing it. At this time, Yu Meiling stood behind Absinthe with an expectant look. A group of staff couldn't stand it anymore, and rushed to the Wanchai one by one. Absinthe looked at them rushing towards him, with a hint of weirdness in his eyes. He didn't stop these people, and let them rush into the Wanchai. The Wanchai instantly became noisy, and these bank staff looked around nervously. At this time, a woman had already pulled Yu Meiling and said, Meiling, where is this place? I don't know either, but the owner here promised to help me leave Wanjin City. I just paid the price. Yu Meiling's face showed a strange look. Although she didn't know how her price would be taken away. At this time, the bank employees around her all showed strange looks on their faces when they heard Yu Meiling's words. Yu Meiling looked at their faces and knew what they were thinking. I paid with my talent, not the dirty things you think in your heart. After saying that, she looked at Absinthe. Please help me leave here, I don't want to stay here for a moment. Then please go this way. Absinthe closed the door of the Wanchai, and then opened it again. At this time, the opposite side of the Wanchai had become a wide road. At this time, all the employees in the bank saw this scene, and their eyes were full of disbelief. At this time, Yu Meiling had already walked into the door and stood on the road. At this time, a figure suddenly rushed out from the bank staff and rushed to the door of the Wanchaiwu. But what greeted him was the weird smile of Absinthe. Bang! There was a violent muffled sound. In an instant, the person who rushed out was hit in the chest by Absinthe. The whole person flew up directly as if hit by a 10-ton truck, and flew back to his previous position at a faster speed. Puff! Bang! He hit the ground heavily. A mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth, with some fragments, and it was obvious that his organs were damaged. If he was not treated in time, he would die. In just a moment, he lay on the ground, unable to move, with fear flashing in his eyes, looking at Absinthe. At this time, Lin Yi stood up from his seat and looked, without even looking at the group of people, and came to the door. His eyes looked at Yu Meiling, and he said calmly, "Our contract has ended." Yu Meiling's face changed constantly, and then nodded solemnly. "Yes? Our contract is over? Thank you, Mr. Manager." As Yu Meiling's voice fell, a wonderful blue light floated out of her body. These seemed to be attracted, and the light gathered in front of Lin Yi and turned into a blue bead. In this beautiful blue bead is Yu Meiling's understanding of all swimming skills and her body's natural affinity for swimming, that is, talent. Lin Yi took this gem and smiled slowly at Yu Meiling. "Then have a good trip, and I wish you a smooth journey home." After that, the door of the Wanchaiwu was closed. Yu Meiling stood alone on a wide road, looking around. It was dark. This should be the kind of road in the suburbs. She gritted her teeth, walked in one direction, and gradually disappeared into the night. However, a group of female employees in the Wanchaiwu looked at Lin Yi with horror. They saw the changes that happened outside the Wanchaiwu door. That was something they couldn't understand. Lin Yi looked at them calmly. "Then it's your turn now. This is the Wanchaiwu, which can fulfill your wishes, but the condition is that you have to pay a price." "What are the prices?" "Your life, your soul, or some talent you naturally master. The talent must reach a certain level before it can be used as an exchange. The Yu Meiling just now, he once won the first place in the city level swimming in the past. This is a good talent, so he is qualified to be used as a price. Her wish is to leave Wanjin City. I have sent her to a safe road outside Wanjin City. What wish do you want to fulfill next? By the way, if you don't fulfill your wish, I will send you back to where you are." As he said, his eyes were on Absinthe. Absinthe pushed open the door of the Wanchaiwu with a strange smile. The opposite side became an underground vault again. After everyone looked at the vault, fear appeared in their eyes. After staying there for so many days, the vault has become the place they least want to stay. Immediately, a female employee stood up and said, I want to get out, and I'm willing to pay the price. I write very well and have won awards before. This is my talent, and I'm willing to pay for it." Lin Yi looked at him with a slight smile on his face. "Of course, then let's sign the contract." One after another, bank employees began to sign contracts. They either paid for their talents or paid for 10 years of their lives.